Welcome to Lifestyle Solopreneur, the community for entrepreneurs who put lifestyle first. Join your host, Flavia Barris, as she interviews successful lifestyle solopreneurs and shares ideas to help you find the perfect balance between lifestyle, business, and self. Flavia is an attorney, marketing expert, and founder of several online academies. She's been featured in major media, including BBC World News, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Post, ESPN Television, and more. Join us for this episode of Lifestyle Solopreneur.
Hey, Lifestyle Solopreneurs. Today we get to speak with Maricela Soberanes. She is a principal at Up Plex Multifamily Investments, which is a private equity firm specializing in real estate. She's got a business degree and she's been investing since 2006, building a $4.5 million personal portfolio before transitioning to commercial real estate. She's a successful business owner and author, and she shares her expertise in the book called The Ultimate Guide to Building a Cash-Flowing Real Estate Portfolio and Retire Early. Now, she and Chris Linger coach entrepreneurs and operate a VA agency focusing on business growth and passive income. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Flavia. I'm super excited to share my information here to help other people thinking the same thing. Let's retire and continue to cash flow.
Yeah. So Maricela, how did you get to where you are today? Because you've had quite the journey, and even just reading everything you've done excites me because I love it when people have multiple business lines, multiple sources of income, multiple passions. You're definitely one of those people because you're not just involved in real estate in a big way, but you also coach people, you operate a virtual assistant agency. There's a lot going on. So tell us how you got to where you are now.
Yes, of course. Thank you. My career started side by side, pretty much. My primary job and my profession by trade is anesthesia provider. So when I started, actually, I bought my first duplex in 2006, and at the same time, I was going to school. And it went like that when I remember renting that duplex because I have to move out of state to go to school. And that kind of opened my eyes to passive income. I was like, wow, this house is being paid by somebody else. I still have to hold some reserves, but overall it's acquiring value, it's cash flowing a little bit at that time. But while I was still working on educating myself and just building my skills. So that's how I got started and got addicted to cash flow from the real estate passive. And at that time, it wasn't that passive. I was still managing the unit by myself and just navigating, learning about the real estate. And then I started working as an anesthesia provider. Later on 2015, I started traveling for work. And I have acquired a second home, which I then started renting by the room and eventually the whole house for travelers and Austin as well. And it was the same thing. It was the house was being paid by itself while I was traveling and practicing still, but on my own terms, traveling to different states and even overseas to practice my profession. So I was living the life then. So I figure if I can continue to buy houses or apartments like that and just scale that side of the income, the cash flowing from the real estate, and then just continue to work in the hospital and eventually retire myself from the hospital. That was my ultimate goal when I was building the real estate at the same time.
That's amazing because you were in the medical field. So you weren't someone who is going around telling people, handing out a business card saying, I'm a real estate investor. And in some ways, you were just buying places for yourself to live. And then when you were ready to move on from that place, instead of selling it, you were converting it into a rental. I think it's interesting that you got creative because does renting a property by the room sometimes yield better results and more revenue than renting out the whole house?
It was at the time, and the house was the perfect setup. We still have it. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with the garage. So it was like a whole couple or a family could live in one side and they still have the other 2 bedrooms to rent. And that's exactly what happened. So I was renting it with all the amenities, everything was included. And I had singles that stayed there and just loved We did interviews to make sure they get along well, and the vetting of the roommates was very key. But because of it, people tend to stay there for years when they intended to stay there for months. So you can imagine the turnover was much lower. We provided cleaning and pretty much everything. They were just living there, no other obligation other than the rent. So they were willing to pay a little bit of high of a premium, and if they were happy, and I was happy, and yeah, definitely that was a good strategy to implement at that time.
What was the transition from that sort of residential real estate into commercial real estate? What prompted that?
Yeah, funny you asked. 2020, something happens. I think we all know. In the
I have no
hospital, there
idea
were
what you might be
only
referring to. 2020
right.
is no memories.
No, I know, right? So COVID happened, and in the hospital, they were reducing the amount of cases to only procedures that were urgent and or emergent. So a lot of the elective surgeries were postponed or canceled. So because of that, I actually lost my job. I was in the military, and my unit was on recall 48 hours to duty if they call us. So I needed to stay local in Austin at that time. And because of that, it forced us to be realistic and to see what we really were getting from the portfolio. At that point, we had 35 apartments. I was already working with my husband and business partner, Chris Linger. And we realized that we were in pretty good place. However, if we needed to scale this, we were way too involved. We were very hands-on. Many of the loans were in our names still, so a high liability there, and we were just pretty much tied to the portfolio. So we realized that we needed to keep the cash flow. We needed to keep growing our net worth and our income outside of our primary jobs. And we decided to learn about investing in larger commercial real estate and bring in partners, because at that point, we have proved to our friends and families how we were doing and building our wealth, and they wanted to be a part of it. So that was a transition that we slowly took by selling and transitioning, selling our portfolio and transitioning into initially passive investing and multifamily, and then joint venturing into some self-storages and mobile home parks, and then eventually started doing as leading the syndication model. Syndication is a group buy-in, in case the audience might not be familiar with that terminology.
That's an amazing story. And then, but you didn't end there. I feel like one of those TV infomercials, but wait, there's more. There's actually more here. Today, I know that you're working, you're an owner of a VA agency. Tell us a little bit about that. You also coach entrepreneurs. How did that segue from what you were doing before in real estate?
Yeah. So what happened is we started growing pretty fast. Actually, when we sold our portfolio, we had the capital and we didn't even touch it. We reinvested immediately, and because of that, we came about different partnerships. And we were invited in several groups to be a part of the general partners, which is the active portion. So we immediately went from I lost my job or my contract, and my husband was retired, to now full-time real estate investors and syndicators. We needed to build our team, but we really were not very cash flowing at that time. And so we didn't really wanted to bring a full staff or an in-state staff, which we ended up doing eventually. But with that, we started exploring hiring virtual assistants for our team to train them to learn, to help us. And that's exactly what we did. We formed a very robust team of virtual assistants, and a couple of them are in the States, actually. But with everybody wanting to work from home, and they have created that habit. It was a very welcoming message for them and for us. So it was easy to implement. And coming from the military, we see one, we then train to do one, and everybody is writing and their operating procedures, so that everything has a digital print, pretty much. There is always a protocol to follow. So that's exactly what we did within our company. And eventually, our partners started seeing how we were pretty much omnipresent. They were wondering, when do you sleep? Reality was that I had, again, a really robust team, and they started asking us to help them recruit and train their assistants. And that's exactly what we did, and that's how we were able to not only help our team and our investments, but also a lot of other business owners. And we started initially with syndicators, because that's what we knew. and then slowly expand to other type of real estates like Airbnb, property management type of setting. And then we team up with Grant Cardone. He's a business coach and his team. So now we don't only coach for our own community, we also coach for the 10X community. And that has expanded a lot of our innovating the just what's the best and best practices in sales and marketing as well as business and growing businesses. And we've been able to pretty much create our own ecosystem where we help our business owners increase the network, and then they can invest with us and or become partners.
That's neat how it all comes full circle because you help entrepreneurs in whatever they're doing as their business. But then once they've made some profit, you can help them reinvest it into real estate, which is your first love, right? That first passion.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
VAs, let's talk about virtual assistants. A lot of people are not familiar with that world. What are the sorts of services and what can you hire a
Mhm,
VA to do for your business? If you're, let's say, a
mhm,
solopreneur and you're overworked, you're wearing too many hats, what are some of the
mhm,
low hanging fruit as far as, hey, here is if you're just going to hire one person, hire this person
mhm.
to do these tasks and it's going to help you.
Yeah. So what I usually coach my clients to do is to make a list of the things, two lists. One, the list that the tasks that you are often doing, like the most repetitive, and then two, the list of the tasks that are going to bring you income. And so, what you want to do is delegate those tasks that are taking most of your time and keep those that are giving you income. And even the ones that are bringing you income, let's suppose that you're doing a race for an investment opportunity. You can delegate just about 80% of that process if you can break down the process. Maybe set up the call, send them a reminder, send them a follow up, send them notes. All of that can be delegated. And you merely are going to be handling the part that you are the person that needs to be handling because they know you and they trust you. You don't want to delegate that critical part of the process. However, about 70 to 80% of that entire process can be delegated. And because you're handling only the critical parts, the other parts are going to be handled very efficiently once that you get the system in place. And those things that you are repeatedly doing, you ideally want to create a process. So when I delegate a task, my second step is to have them document how did they accomplish that task so that when and if they leave or if they need to take a vacation, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to train somebody else. That system is already documented for somebody else, including videos, pictures, and everything else that is going to reduce the time that you have to spend training somebody.
Amazing. And so today, what does your own life look like on a day to day basis? Like, where are you spending the majority of your time in a given week? Are you mostly real estate still, or do you mostly focus on coaching and working with entrepreneurs? And how do you keep your
Yeah.
day organized and sane?
With a lot of PAs. So I actually still practice at the hospital. I practice probably about 3 to 4 months out of the year, and I take very luxuriant, like very relaxed schedule. I work 3 or 4 days a week, so that gives me the balance to still be present and schedule coaching calls and training calls, as well as continue to train for myself. And then I will say about 40% of my time is spent in educating others and real estate at the same time, growing our portfolio. My husband does primarily the real estate full time. So he's the one that handles the brokers, calls, asset management, and then just staying connected and communicating with the teams.
Wow. I want to be a fly on the wall in your meeting rooms when you're sitting down and talking about all
Come
the
on.
different things that you've got going on. When you say my VAs, for someone who's doing as much as you're doing, how big
Mhm.
is your team of virtual assistants that help you?
Have 11, and two of them are high executives. So they handle the more private and financial information, anything that has to stay within the states. It's as we have two, and they themselves have each of them have their own as well.
Amazing. So, for any entrepreneurs who are out there who are feeling they just need a little bit of inspiration, what would you say to someone that feels a little bit trapped or directionless, who listens to a story like yours and is inspired and wants to do more, what would you say to that person to get them to make that move and to take that first step?
So I think that first of all, recognizing the resources that they have, and because they probably listen to my story and they're thinking, yeah, I'm going to get me 10 VAs, but sometimes that's not realistic for everybody. And even if they were able to financially afford them, the time that it takes to coordinate them and to train them in layers, it will be very overwhelming. So I will say, see what you have as resources and then control that. If you have time more than money or money more than time, or maybe you can, if you have a skill that you can outsource, the point here is to bring more cash flow, increase your wealth with the lowest amount of effort by utilizing the resources that you have at hand. And then actually I have a tool that it is a mathematical way of pretty much if I wanted to start a business, what ideas I have, which one is the most easily achievable, and which one is the one that I need to, what activity I need to break it down, what activity I can complete that is going to get me, let's say, sell more cakes faster. I don't need to be going and getting the groceries for the cakes. I need to focus on promoting the cakes. So by doing that breakdown of the whole process or the idea that they might have, then they can allocate their resources and the most profitable tasks.
Amazing. This is great. And I know we ask all of our guests, this is new this year. We're asking all of our guests to contribute something to the community, some sort of a free resource, a free gift to help everybody on their way. And I love the gift that you picked. It's an ebook. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Building a Cash Flowing Real Estate Portfolio and Retire Early for Busy Professionals. I like that it's for busy professionals because I think a lot of people fit that category and are like, do I have time to do this? But yes, everyone has time. And as with all of our guest gifts, that will be available at podcastguest.com, podcastguestgift.com. We'll put a link to it there so that you can download that guide. Maricela, any final words? It's just so great to have you, and your story is inspirational. Just to have someone that never stopped. You just kept moving forward, no matter what, building and building, climbing and climbing, adding more and more to what you do. And I think that alone is just so inspirational to hear about, but also just the way that you support others and that you focus on helping other entrepreneurs leverage themselves, scale, buy back some of their time. I love everything that you're up to. So any parting words before we sign off for the day?
First of all, thank you so much for having me and your community. And at whatever level you are, this is your path and you cannot compare to others. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that we as human beings do make, that is compared to compared to others. Follow your path, be resourceful, and just stay focused on your goals and your dreams. Whatever you are, just take it from there. And if you're at the very bottom, that only goes one way, which means up. So push yourself up, and we can, whatever we can do to help. You can look me up and reach out to me. I do answer all those questions, emails, and DMs, whichever way you find me.
Maricela, thank you so much for being on today. It's wonderful to meet you. And I know a lot of people will be reaching out to you for more support and to learn more about what you're up to.
Thank you, Flavia. Appreciate it.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and if you leave a review on iTunes, I promise I will read every single review. If you know someone who makes a full-time living from part-time work, and maybe this is you, please visit lifestylesolopreneur.com to nominate a guest or to nominate yourself. Because remember this, money doesn't buy happiness, but money in the hands of a happy person, there is no greater tool.
Today's episode was brought to you by the Get Shift Done program. It's a lifestyle-changing online class to help you define your business and lifestyle ambitions, and to set goals in a way you've never experienced before. This class will 10x your daily productivity with methods that will blow your mind. And if you use the coupon code podcast, the class tuition is 99% off. Visit GetShiftDone.com to enroll today.